Aloha, inspired moneymakers. I'm Andy Wong, your host and financial advisor at Runnymede Capital Management. Welcome to episode 5 of our exhilarating Inspired Money livestream series. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that touches the very core of our humanity, generosity. We've got an incredible lineup of esteemed panelists who are not just experts, but practitioners of generosity in their own unique ways. They're here to share their personal stories, the science behind giving, and most importantly, to inspire each and every one of us to create our philanthropic legacies. From exploring the emotional and psychological dimensions of giving to discussing the many faces of generosity, time, talent, and treasures. We've got it all covered. We'll also delve into the concept of effective altruism and discuss strategies for leaving a lasting legacy of generosity. But that's not all. We're also going to explore the generosity ecosystem, a new paradigm that's reshaping how we give and engage with our communities. In the theme of today's show, I'm really excited to share the success of our recent benefit concert for Maui. I organized it to aid victims of the devastating wildfires. I'm deeply thankful to my friends who are talented cultural practitioners of Hawaiian music and hula here on the East Coast, and just thankful for their generous contributions and for everybody who came out. A shout out to my family. My oldest daughter did a great job of running the soundboard. My son provided muscle, setting up and breaking down, moving tables and chairs. And my youngest daughter, she entertained the kids in attendance. Meanwhile, my wife worked tirelessly preparing food and keeping us all organized. My church provided the venue, and the community helped because, as they say, it really takes a village. The event had an incredible turnout, and every donation will directly support Maui relief organizations. So I want to invite you, our Inspired Money podcast listeners and viewers, to join us in making a difference by visiting the link inspiredmoney.fm/Maui. That's MAUI. Together, we can create a ripple of positive impact, no matter the size of our contribution. So thank you for your compassion and support. In this episode, let's embark on an enlightening journey through the multifaceted world of generosity. Together, we're going to explore how giving not only can enrich our lives, but also create a ripple of positive change that will echo through time. Are you ready to create a ripple of inspired giving? Let's get started. I want to welcome our panelists. We've got Professor Paul J. Zak. He's affectionately known as Dr. Love for his groundbreaking research on oxytocin and its profound impact on generosity and economic behavior. His research unveils the intricate connections between trust, morality, and the inspiring act of giving. And it's taken him from the Pentagon to Fortune 50 boardrooms to the rainforest of Papua New Guinea. He has a great TED Talk entitled Trust, Morality, and Oxytocin. In his latest book, Immersion, the Science of the Extraordinary and the Source of Happiness. Welcome, Dr. Zak.
Thanks, Andy.
I want to welcome in Maggie Doyne. Her remarkable journey has been nothing short of inspirational. Her gap year adventure in 2005 took an unexpected turn when she stumbled upon a community in Nepal that captured her heart. Determined to make a difference, she used her life savings to start the Kopila Valley Children's Home. She founded the BlinkNow Foundation, which supports numerous projects focused on education, healthcare, and women's empowerment in Nepal. She was named a CNN Hero in 2015 and authored the book Between the Mountain and the Sky, a mother's story of love, loss, healing, and hope. Welcome back, Maggie.
It's good to see you again. Thank you.
Last time I saw you, we were sitting in a park behind the library.
Now we're on the screen. I'm loving your podcast. It's awesome.
Thank you. I'm glad that we could catch you before you fly home to Nepal tomorrow.
Yeah.
James Siegal, also welcome back to Inspired Money. James is a senior fellow for KABOOM, advising the organization dedicated to putting an end to place-based inequity through strategic partnerships. James served as KABOOM CEO for 5 years, during which time he accelerated the organization's work through public-private partnerships, extended its reach with philanthropy, drove innovation in place-based design, and sharpened its focus on racial equity. He's also a graduate of Princeton University and Harvard Law School. So good to see you again, James.
Great to see you, Andy.
And with this magnificent panel, I want to jump into segment 1 and get started. Generosity, a virtue celebrated across cultures, is more than mere giving. It's a profound expression of human connection. The joy of giving transcends material gain, creating a sense of fulfillment that resonates with our very essence. It's driven by empathy and compassion, allowing us to connect deeply with others, fostering community and trust. But generosity also shapes our psychological landscape. It instills a sense of purpose, aligning with our core values, boosting self-esteem, and strengthening social bonds. Research even links generosity to increased mental well-being and reduced stress. In a world often driven by self-interest, the heart of generosity reminds us of our shared humanity. It's not just about what we give, but how we give, the empathy we express, and the lives we touch. Let us embrace the emotional and psychological dimensions of giving, for in generosity, we find not only the joy of connection, but the path to a more compassionate and cohesive society. Maggie, you've seen the impact of generosity from New Jersey to Nepal and beyond. How do you think generosity contributes to building stronger communities?
Oh gosh, I think it's the core of our humanity. I think it's what makes us real. It's what makes us human. I mean, I think we're designed to work together and be together. And I think, I don't know, we're in a world with a lot of distraction and a lot of kind of moving away from what's important, what's real, and I think generosity, gratitude in general are just very important things that we need to be talking about and working on and kind of returning back to, all of us, staying connected with one another. So I'd say it's pretty important.
Paul, research links acts of generosity to increase mental well-being, reduce stress, even longer life expectancy. What's the science behind acts of giving?
Right, so Maggie is exactly correct. When we look at the human brain, we are designed to connect to others. And we do that by absorbing, mostly unconsciously, signals that tell us about people's emotional states and their needs. So let's take the contrarian view. Let's suppose I'm never going to be generous. I'm just trying to get through the day. I don't want to help other people. So there basically are 4 things you can do to extend your health span: sleep well, eat well, exercise. And the 4th is have strong social connections, right? So it's people who have that rich social network that actually live longer, healthier, and happier. So how do we do that? We've got to practice connecting to others. And generosity is a way that not only helps us acutely connect to others, but we've shown in published research trains our brain to be better connectors, to be more emotionally open, and to strengthen the social ties with those around us.
It's a beautiful thing. And I mentioned this Maui benefit concert that I held on Sunday. I think that I am not as generous as some of my fellow performers. And I say that because I donated my time and my talents as a performer and an organizer. But some of my fellow musicians and then even the dancers, once the performance was done, they told me, when I get home, I'm also going to make a donation, a monetary donation for this cause. And that's something that they inspired me, because I said, in my mind, I was thinking just our time and our talents were enough. But they stepped it up a notch. And I think that social feedback, sort of, we work together and we push each other to be more generous.
But also, we shouldn't make people feel bad if they're just donating their time or just donating their goods or their money. All that in the published research, all that is actually useful. It gives us that benefit, as Maggie said, that feeling of helping others, that feeling of connection to others, and helps us get through life happier and healthier. And so, yeah, if you can't donate money and you're donating time, awesome. Keep doing that. It works just as well.
I love that, Paul. James, in your work at KABOOM, you bring play spaces to communities and schools that they don't have the funds to build playgrounds for kids. In your experience, how does generosity act as the social glue, fostering a sense of community and trust among people?
Well, Andy, I love how you framed it up front, because there's really a difference between generosity and giving. And when I hear you talk about generosity, I hear motivations like community and respect and love and solidarity. And those are motivations that you can use then to come together to change inequitable, unjust systems that are preventing people from living their best lives. There are other motivations for giving that are not so pure: arrogance, pity, and those tend to reinforce the power difference between the giver and the recipient. And at KABOOM, what we try to do is bring people together from all different walks of life in common purpose, working side by side to get a common project done, where everyone is coming to the table with their own strengths. And at the same time, everyone is focused on the same result, which is to change a broken system, not to change a broken person. And I think that matters a lot when it comes to then what you feel as the giver, right? Or as the person who's generous. It's not that you're better than and you're able to give. It's that you are part of a community. You are in solidarity to achieve a result that's better for everyone.
Paul, I want to ask you about some of your experimenting with oxytocin and even synthetic oxytocin. Is it the act of giving? Is it the generosity? Is it the social aspect of community? And what if somebody's motivation is for ego versus, just trying to give back? Does that matter? Or chemically, or the molecule? Yeah, can you talk about that?
That's the key question, right? So if I give because I am selfish, because I want to extend my health or whatever, or be thanked, does that negate the effect biologically? And the answer is no, which is interesting, right? So this is kind of fake it till you make it. So what we find is that oxytocin, this core neurochemical that connects us to others, increases our sense of empathy, motivates helping behaviors, responds to people's emotional states, and particularly their desire for help. So we see someone suffering, our oxytocin increases. We want to give some help to the other person. Awesome. That in turn gives us a reward. It tells us, hey, this is valuable to you as an organism. Keep doing it. So it does feel good to help other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that feel-good signal, driven by another neurotransmitter called dopamine, creates a craving to repeat the experience. So there's this beautiful cycle in which, as I give, I get that positive feedback, and my brain says, oh, you should keep doing this thing. This is important. Now, when we infuse synthetic oxytocin to people, into their brains, that feedback loop actually disappears. People actually will give generously, irrespective of their resources. So if we pay them $20 to be an experiment, they'll give away 18 or 19 of that 20. If we give them 40, they give away 39 or 40 of those $40. So it kind of takes the whole blinders off. So we can think of oxytocin as this chemical that dissolves the differences between individuals, right? So if I look at James, I go, well, he's different than me on 14 different dimensions. But if I were to release oxytocin, if he was asking for my help, if he was suffering, those dimensions disappear. It's like he's my brother, and I'm going to treat him just like family. And I think that's really beautiful. This is Maggie's work, right? So Maggie's connecting to these children that she's adopted. They're not biologically hers. And so in the narrow evolutionary sense, why is she spending energy on this? It's because, I just met Maggie, but Maggie, you're a wonderful human being. And we know that. And you're getting all that love from those kids, and you can share all that love with other people, not only the kids, but other people around you. So I bet, I'm just going to guess from the biology, Maggie, that you have, and James too, you guys have amazing social networks. You have a lot of friends. You have people that really love you. You have a very rich social life because you've spent your life in service of others. Am I wrong?
No, it's 100% true. And I really like this conversation. I think the old model for charity was like, oh, this poor victim suffering, and then the savior that came in and helped and made it better. And I think what we're all saying is that no, all of us as a humanity, as being interconnected as a community, are coming together with these mutual benefits. And like oxytocin aside, kind of back to what James was saying, like it's good for all of us. It's not giver, receiver. It's all of us kind of building this connection. And yeah, I people often say, oh, you must have sacrificed so much, it must be so hard. And I'm like, no, my life is amazing and rich and full of joy, and it's so fun, and I get to be surrounded by kids, and I found something that I love, and it's purpose driven, and we all need to be looking for that. And it's exciting to move into this new time of let's build our communities together for all of us, because we're only as strong as our most vulnerable. And so we can all be stronger together.
And that's why I love what James has done too, to create places where that just we naturally connect. So we need that connection. And for everybody online, this is all wonderful, and we're getting neurologic value from hanging out together online, but in person, it's so much richer. And if it's in person with play, with class, with school, all that increases that social connection, increases the social bonds, and trains us to be, honestly, better human beings.
I love this. Dr. Love is inspiring all of us to share more love. So let's go to segment 2. In the tapestry of human kindness, 3 threads weave a pattern of generosity: time, talent, and treasure. Time, irreplaceable and precious, is a gift that connects us, fostering joy and fulfillment. Talent, the unique spark within each of us, can be shared to inspire, motivate, and change lives. Treasure, whether a humble coin or a grand donation, reflects our gratitude and altruism. Historically celebrated, these 3 T's of giving resonate across cultures, religions, and hearts. They're not confined to the wealthy. Everyone has something valuable to contribute. Modern trends have expanded these paths, with technology enabling virtual volunteering and online fundraising. But the essence remains the same. Giving enhances well-being, provides purpose, and fosters empathy. Whether through corporate social responsibility or individual acts, the many faces of giving remind us of our shared humanity. In a world where needs are many, let us embrace the time, talent, and treasure we have to offer. For in giving, we not only support others, but discover the richness of our own lives. Maggie, when I read your book, you see the world as your family, and you've taken steps in your life that many other people would not take, which is why you mentioned that people ask you, oh, it's so hard. Have you made a sacrifice? How do you personally define these 3 T's of giving?
Well, I think kind of finding our own purpose and our gifts and how we can share that with the world, but also just seeing each other as being like truly connected, as truly like, hey, we can only work together, and we're only winning and succeeding when all of our human family is succeeding and growing and benefiting together. And just to think that you can build a wall around you and your family and hope that that's enough and hope that we're all going to be okay, that only gets you so far. At some point, we have to realize that no, we all do well when we work together and when we exist in community. And I think that's kind of where our work has landed at BlinkNow. It's that communities thrive and children thrive and grow when they're embraced and loved and nurtured. And how do we get to a planet where every child is safe, educated, and loved? Because when we reach that point, the whole world's going to be better.
It sounds pretty fundamental.
I'm going to summarize that. We all do well when we all do well. That's it, right? That's the bottom line.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're in a place where you have iPads and you have devices, but what you're saying sounds very fundamental. Kids just need love. They may not need a smartphone. Exactly.
And a community that nurtures and is thriving and growing around them. So once we build healthy communities, we'll have healthy, thriving children, and then we end these generations of poverty and violence that are very cyclical. And also just, to think that, okay, some of us win the birth lottery and we get everything, and someone else is born, in a neighborhood 15 minutes away, and it's a completely different reality. I mean, it's not right. And we just have to work together to fix it. Whether it's 8,000 miles away or our neighbor next door, we rely on each other on this planet. And we're one family because we all share a home, which is this planet. And just to think in this last, decade that, just take care of myself and everything will be fine. It's not going to be like that anymore. It's just, that only got us so far. And now we see the crisis that we're in, and we've got a long way to go.
Paul, what do you say to somebody who feels like they don't have something valuable to contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has something valuable to contribute. I remember being in a bus in rural Brazil, in the middle of Brazil. This bus broke down. More like a 30-hour bus ride. And everyone on the bus got out, and we started this bus on a dirt road. Right. So I'm sure Maggie's seen this a million times in Nepal. For me, I was kind of shocked, but everyone just got out, like, we got to help. Right. And so whether you're rich or poor, I think what you said earlier, Andy, is right. Like, we can just give people love, give people really the gift of being present. Right. Sometimes that's all it needs. That I see you. So, get rid of the electronics and just look at that person. So I call this listening with your eyes. So let's try to listen with our eyes. Let's just give that person the real gift of being fully present, not thinking about what I want to say, what I'm going to do next, just listening. So slowing down a little bit is enough. And everyone can do that.
James, I know that in your role, you've done a lot of work looking at technology and how technology can really empower donors and organizations. What do you see there? Like, can technology transform our giving and generosity?
Well, I think technology is definitely a tool that can be used to connect community and everything in balance, right? And so I think we'd be putting our heads in the sand if we thought that we could create an environment where technology is completely out of the lives of children these days. And so how do we use technology to enable a better outcome? And some of that is certainly using technology to drive community giving. We've seen tremendous results when we're not the ones asking for donations, but people from our community are asking their community to contribute to us. And also, there's a role for how technology can be infused into real world play to enhance it as opposed to distract from it. And so we've been looking at a lot of different opportunities to take technology and embed it into a playground where it's not dependent on devices, but enhances the play experience. So one thing that you can envision is sensors on a playground, that when a kid's at the top of a slide and trips a sensor, all of a sudden they hear the sound of a waterfall. And as they're going down the slide, it's like they're going down a waterfall, right? That doesn't get in the way of real world play, that enhances it. But I'd also like to come back to the conversation around talent, because I think it was just so rich what all of you were sharing. and share a couple of experiences, one from KABOOM and one from my family. And for KABOOM, what better way, to Dr. Zach's point, what better way to show kids that they're loved than to create a playground for them, for a community to show that they're loved, right? We see in our work, lots of nonprofits who are in like the economic development business use kids playing as the poster child for a healthy community, but oftentimes it's not invested in. But if you ask kids what matters to them, they're going to pull you aside and say, we need a place to play. And so in our work, what we do is not only deliver a great place to play, but kids are the inspiration for it. They're actually the designers of the play spaces that we create. All of our work always starts with meeting with the kids in the community and asking what they want on their dream playground. And when kids then get to see not only that the community rallied together to create a place for them to play, but that their ideas are coming to life in this play space, it's doubly powerful. But I also wanted to share something from my family life. Andy, you know this, we talked about it when I was on the show before. 3 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with metastatic lung cancer. Healthy, active, never smoked in her life, all of a sudden diagnosed with lung cancer. And I was overwhelmed with all the people who came forward to help. And all of it was, in wonderful spirit to help our family. And anyone who's been on the receiving end of that is so grateful. And at the same time, it's hard to take all of it in. And it may not be the thing that you receive that is most useful to you. And so I got great advice from someone who I consider a true mentor. And he said to me, like, find everyone's individual superpower. And whenever you need that superpower along this journey that you're on, call on it. And so, we had friends who had superpowers to connect us with the right medical professionals, and we called on them. We had friends who could help organize kids' activities, and we called on them for that. And that was just such wonderful advice that I've tried to then apply in my work life, where find everyone's superpower for giving, for generosity, and make sure they're able to bring that to the table in order to deliver a great outcome for everyone who's involved.
Don't be afraid to ask for help or identifying people's superpowers. I love that. If the panelists don't have anything to add to this topic, we're going to move to segment 3. In a world filled with needs, how do we make the most significant difference? Enter effective altruism, a movement that's not just about doing good, but doing the most good we can. Imagine charity as a science, guided by evidence and reason. It's about maximizing overall well-being, choosing causes based on impact, and considering long-term effects. Organizations like GiveWell are leading the way, evaluating charities and supporting this thoughtful movement. But it's not without debate. Critics argue that quantification may overlook local needs or lead to complex decisions. Yet effective altruism challenges us to think critically. It's a call to action, urging us to look beyond what feels good and strive for what will do the most good. In our giving, may we embrace this analytical compassion, recognizing that every choice can be a step towards a better world. James, the weight of your words left us speechless in the last segment. I want to start with you again. Can you explain what effective altruism is? And I know that you have some hot takes on this subject.
Well, I think the video just captured it. It's really about trying to do the most good with every dollar or everything that you give. And I think in concept, in theory, I'm all for that. I think there are some major pitfalls that we have to be wary of so that we can avoid them. And, we've all heard in sort of, the business management world, the mantra, what gets measured gets done. And oftentimes it's easy to focus on the things that are easy to measure, things that are easy to quantify, particularly in the short term, which may take us away from the ability to actually drive large scale change. So think about major movements in the world or in the US around women's rights, LGBTQ rights, human rights, civil rights. Those have all been long-term efforts that have, progress and steps backward. They have a combination of immediate support and long-term advocacy. It's really hard to measure how much difference what you give is making in the grand scheme of those movements. Does that mean that those are less important? And so oftentimes as applied, effective altruism, to me, tends to focus on the things that are easy to measure, but may often miss the mark on most important. And so I think that's a dynamic that we all just need to be aware of. I am all for making sure that mission-driven organizations are measuring their progress, clear on their objectives, shooting for long-term outcomes, and holding themselves accountable to that. To me, that's different from overly simplified measures that may actually get in the way of long-term progress.
The idea of maximizing one's impact sounds really good to me on paper, but as James pointed out, it can raise ethical or practical questions. Maggie, do you see, like when you're in Nepal, is there a huge potential to overlook local and smaller scale needs?
I mean, it's hard. Like we always want to be looking at macro and then like the really small baby steps. And one thing that I noticed in international development is that we were doing these like very scratch the surface, like these instant give every kid a uniform or a 25-cent tablet saves a child's life, or clean water. But really and it's all important, and it's all when you look at the metrics as a whole, we want to be advancing forward. And at the same time, we're looking at building healthy communities. We're looking at building healthy, thriving children. And so the issue is that when you have those instant, like, fix the problem now, instead of like this deep, grassrooted, a child becomes an orphan, right? And now we're in orphan care. Well, there were 10,000 things that we needed to do to prevent that crisis from happening in the first place. And so I think we just need to look at the whole experience holistically and start coming up with community-driven initiatives. And yeah, there's a time and place for all of it. But yeah, I think these issues are very complex and very layered, and it takes time. And we can't, I think James would agree, like you just like to expect this instant fix. It's time. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes generations, and complex issues take complex problem solving. And that's one thing I've learned from living in a community now for 18 years. It's like there's no quick fix. In fact, a lot of the things that we're able to improve upon there aren't metrics for them. There's not a metric that says, well, how happy is the child playing in the KABOOM play? Like, how do you measure the success of that, right? But that could be the critical, most important thing in that child's life, right? That they had a safe place to play. And so this field of philanthropy, and it's complex and it's layered and it's deep, and it takes patience and it takes deep understanding, deep investment. And And we need to think about it that way as an industry, as a holistic, community-driven, community-based approach, and take it one step at a time.
Paul, you're the researcher among us. Organizations like GiveWell produce research on where to give based on impact per dollar. From what you said earlier, it sounds like our oxytocin doesn't really care about quantifying impact. As a researcher, what's your take?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I don't have a great answer. I do think from a human perspective, as James and Maggie said, that giving on a one-to-one basis is quite valuable to most people. And so I can certainly write a check to a charity that I care about, and that's great. And often we'll get feedback on, if you donate to charities, they send you feedback and want to continue your giving. Nothing at all wrong with that. But really, I think being on the front lines, like Maggie and James are, is an entirely different experience if people have not done that. And there is a sense of compassion fatigue, right? So I'm amazed at both Maggie and James. They, I'm sure they have times when they're just burnt out and tired and they don't want to do anymore. But really being on the front lines is valuable. So I'll give you one quick example. I do a lot of hiking with my dog. My kids are out of the house now, so I have a little time. And I decided to volunteer to help clear trails. And let me tell you, I spent some hours in the heat, and almost everybody, the walkers, the hikers, the bike, everyone stopped and goes, "Thank you very much for your," I could have been an employee. I don't know. Everyone was so nice. I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I've done the research, but now I'm getting that direct feedback. It's really, really nice. So think of kind of modulating, maybe have a portfolio of ways that you give. Maybe some charities, like to Maui. I can't go to Maui and help people clean up their houses, but I can give money. For things that you do regularly, think about that as an opportunity to give in person, and you gain all that direct benefit, both from the other people who are volunteering and also from the people you're helping.
I also think it's we all need to get better at, there's this in the term, oh, you write a check and then you don't know where it goes. And I think with technology, kind of going back to we have an opportunity to show and tell stories and show impact. And, like you said, like the pictures of the happy children playing and really connecting, like being the deliverers of that oxytocin, right? Like, look, this mattered. It made a difference. And when things get too big and you can't give people that feedback, and they start to doubt whether it really matters, right? And does it really matter? And we know that feeling of apathy also is and in doubt is a problem. So I think we, in the charitable world, it's our duty to make sure that we're building those connections. Hey, you have the gas, we have the car. How are we going to get there together? Let's all come together and do this.
Yeah, it's that constant toggling, right? So like we do a lot of work, for example, with Baltimore City Public Schools. And we started that work a long time ago. And over years, we built up relationships with community organizations in Baltimore and the school district. And everyone who gets involved in our projects feels that rush that you all are talking about. And they feel like they've achieved something and they want to do more. And then we can connect that to the overall objective, which is to ensure that every student in Baltimore has a great place to play where they're learning. And for a lot of folks, it's eye-opening because they think like well, of course, doesn't every elementary school have a playground? No, many elementary schools don't. And we now have in our sights the ability to say we've achieved every student in Baltimore having a great place to play where they learn. And so it's the ability to connect people to that specific project like Maggie's talking about, but then also connect the dots for them to the larger objective that they are contributing to, which creates that long-term ability to stay connected to the cause, continue to contribute, and to find new ways to bring others to the cause and to champion the work that's being done.
Yeah, and bringing others to the cause. I want to move on to segment 4 and talk about the L word, legacy. In a world where giving is evolving, how do we leave a lasting legacy of generosity? Today's philanthropy is no longer about giving. It's about creating a measurable and enduring impact. Companies like Tom's and Patagonia are leading the way, integrating philanthropy into their very business models. They're not just donating, they're aligning their missions with their passions, focusing on efficiency and removing ego from the equation. But how can we all build a legacy? It starts with studying those who've succeeded, exploring our passions, and creating a mission statement that resonates with our values. Consider the Carnegie family's legacy of public libraries, or Patagonia's bold decision to make the planet its only shareholder. These are not mere acts of giving. They are strategic, innovative, and transcendent. So as we ponder our paths to generosity, let's challenge ourselves to think beyond the immediate. Let's aspire to create legacies that ripple through time, touching lives and inspiring generations to come. I feel like with technology, with the pace at which our daily lives run, we often feel too busy to be empathetic. And I'm wondering if Paul can share with us some of his research on oxytocin and empathy, because if we want to strive to be more generous, I feel like empathy is such an important thing.
Yeah, empathy is the driver largely for generosity. And it's such a good question, Andy, that the sort of empathy giving curve is kind of an inverted U. And that happens a lot of times in biology, where if I'm too overwhelmed, if I'm in Calcutta and I see so many starving children, I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. And if I don't see anyone in need, then I'm not going to give. So we have this sort of mid-range where for those of us who are blessed with having enough resources, where we want to kind of deploy those in a way that helps as many people as possible. And as I said, in the brain, it creates that feedback loop where now I want to continue to do this because I'm getting positive feedback. So being open to empathy is something that, as I said earlier, requires us to slow down a little bit, to be present, to look at people's faces, to see those emotions, and really think about how we can do the most good for one person or for many people. But I think we have to be open to it. And if we're busy, if we're stressed, we're hungry, we're tired, it's much harder to be empathic than if we're able to be calm and present and absorb the information from the people around us.
Maggie, you work with children, and I think that gives you the gift of, like, children carry an innocence, and they don't have like the baggage, emotional baggage, or biases that grown-ups may have. So like there's a pureness there, a purity there. In your experience, what steps can individuals take to start building their own legacy of generosity?
Yeah, I think a lot about the word hope, and like choosing to believe that things can be better, like choosing to believe that our actions matter, choosing to believe that we can make an impact and have that legacy, like, and it's hard to like stay joyful and stay hopeful and stay like, we got this, come on, don't give it up, come on, we're making a difference and it matters. And yeah, I always say, whenever you start to kind of doubt, or does it really matter, what should I do, or how do I give, you only need to look into the face of a child, and that's the future, right? We take nothing with us. We're all going to go at some point, and the only thing that's left is the next few generations of kiddos, and how we pass the baton on to them and what we pass on to them. And that becomes legacy, and that becomes the future. And that means we need to have hope for the future. And that means that we need to recognize that our decisions, our choices matter, that we can have an impact, and that everybody has something to give. And we just have to take that one step forward, step by step, little by little, and know that we'll get there. So I definitely believe in legacy. I know that in the blink of an eye, we could not be here tomorrow. And what is it that we want to leave? And what do we want our actions to look like every day? Because they really do matter.
That's powerful motivation, for sure. And I love that kids are brutally honest. They will tell you how it is, and oftentimes will not sugarcoat it.
I love them. I love them.
James,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I loved what Dr. Zach and Maggie just shared, because like in my experience, both of those things come together, like the how you build empathy, which is really rooted in experience, and then how you create those joyful moments, and the teaching kids early that challenging work, important work can be joyful is such an important life lesson. And giving them the experiences that help them build empathy in the process is just so amazing. And one of the gifts that I've had in being able to work for KABOOM is to get my kids directly involved in the work. And kids fundamentally understand why playgrounds are important. And so the ability from when they were very young to include them in the process of building playgrounds was just so critical in their own development as children. And I hope that that's stuff that they're going to carry forward and be sort of the true legacy of the work. And Andy, I loved hearing about how you involved your kids in the work of supporting Maui, a part of the world that I know you care deeply about. And it's different when you talk about it versus you actually engage kids in it. And I'm sure even if they may have complained that, they were, forced to work long hours alongside you, that it's something that they're going to remember, and it's going to be something that is going to carry forward in how they live their lives.
And I just want to add, like, instead of shame and blame and guilt, what if we started talking about, like, you'll feel better? There's all these health benefits. Like, I remember growing up and being like, as a kid, you better finish all the food on your plate because there's starving children in the world. And you're like, oh, like, well, can I give my food to them? Like, where are they? But it was this feeling of like helplessness. Like, I want to help, but how can I? And where's my place in this? And I think we got things twisted for a bit, where it's like, you have so much, and then and you're not. And it's like, what if we made this shift with this next generation of kiddos that's just about joy and compassion and empathy and like mental health? Like, all of our mental health will improve, and building connections and building friendships. And so I do think we need to move in a world filled with such doom and gloom and shame and blame. And like, what if we just move to this spirit of like joy? It makes us better, and it makes us more connected, and all of us are going to be healthier and happier for it. And I think we need to be thought leaders in making that shift, and that it's not only the right thing to do, it's how we're all going to be happier and healthier and continue on as a planet and a human family. So we got to do that.
I love that idea. We need more of that and less road rage.
Yeah.
It gets better as you get older. So this is maybe also interesting for listeners, that when we're younger, we're kind of stressed out. We're not comfortable in our own skins. And what we find is that people who have a history of helping others, volunteering, donating money, that they establish those habits, as James said, and then they continue to do it. And as we get older, we get better at emotionally regulating. Things don't bother us as much. And that's a great time to think about that legacy effect, right? So when you're kind of middle-aged and older, you have a great opportunity, if you've acquired some resources and some time, to be able to share that with other people. And as Maggie said, really spread that impact, that love, so that the next generation does the same thing. So, we're herd creatures. We do what the other humans are doing. So if the other humans are road raging and fighting and they're evil, then that's what the kids are going to pick up. But if they see love, they're going to share love.
I don't know. I don't think my parents ever told me that I have to finish my food because there are starving children on the other side of the world. But for some reason, that was in my mind, like on my own. So today, my wife is constantly reminding me, finishing my food and my kids' food is not doing me any favors, that I should just help the children on the other side of the world in a different way. And my doctor agrees. So let's move on to our final segment, segment 5. In our interconnected world, the generosity ecosystem is reshaping how we live. It's more than money. It's time, items, voice, and a shared purpose. A staggering 84% of people worldwide engaged in giving last year. Businesses are embracing generosity, sharing resources, and gaining competitive advantages. Countries like Kenya are leading in generosity, and younger generations are diversifying their contributions. In education, collaboration is creating thriving ecosystems. Companies like Microsoft are tracking generosity's impact, fostering innovation and efficiency. But challenges remain. In the United States, the decline in donors emphasizes the need to diversify the donor base. The future calls for collaborative giving, community engagement, and building a culture of generosity. The generosity ecosystem is a call to action. It's about mutual collaboration, clear purpose, and lasting positive change. Let's embrace the power of collaboration and inspire a generosity ecosystem that resonates with our shared humanity. Maggie, I love the idea of what you were talking about, that we need to shift our mindset, think differently. And this idea of a generosity ecosystem, of giving collaboratively and community engagement. Can you talk a little bit more about how do we execute a shift where we are changing, and is it like a muscle that we have to exercise?
I think so. I mean, we can talk to the doctor, but Dr. Love, but yeah, I think it's absolutely about changing the conversation, changing the questions that we ask. You know, there's just so much distraction right now, right? Like away from what's important, and just constantly coming back to heart, coming back to self, coming back to what matters. And I believe that we're going to get there. I believe that we will definitely get there. But it has to be something that with intention, that we work on, that we build in our children, that we build into the fabric of our communities. And it will take work and it will take effort. But it is 100% possible. Like, I know that on a cellular level, having been in this work and working in community development for so long, it 100% works. It is effective, and we can do it. We've seen that on smaller scales, and now we just have to build it into this generation and our time here.
Can I add a word of caution, Andy?
Sure.
I think people listening to this are thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? Right? Like, I've got so many things, so many people can use help. And do I help someone in Nepal? Do I go? I don't know anyone in Nepal. Do I go to a different community? How do I do this? I think it's a really simple formula that I recommend, which is using the word service. So when you meet someone, when I meet someone, I try to end every conversation with the word service. How can I be of service to you? And that is an act of generosity. It's an act of caring. And if we get in the habit of just being of service to others, we develop that habit of care and compassion, and it opens us up to other kinds of opportunities. So just try that. Just try ending every conversation with service. So I'll try it with you, Andy. Andy, thank you so much for the invitation to be on. I want to be of service to you. Please call on me in the future if I can do something that would help you.
I love that you make it less scary or less intimidating. Because when we see natural disaster, right, in Maui, in Morocco, in California, like, we see natural disaster and you feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many bad things happening in the world. I can't make a difference. And it goes back to what Maggie was saying about hope. Like, you have to believe and have hope that even if you contribute a little bit, that it can make a difference and that it will make a difference. And the idea of asking, how can I be of service to you? It makes it very accessible. And it also makes it applicable to anyone that you're walking across the street and you bump into somebody. How may I be of service to you? Or if you're at work, or if you're, riding a bike or playing a soccer game somewhere. It's a simple question that can actually make a difference. So thank you for that. James, your thoughts on this topic of collaborative giving, of community engagement, of working together?
Well, I absolutely love the way it's trended toward a discussion about service. And the reason I say that is because I've really been inspired by my kids' generation and how they are willing to wade into very challenging and large scale problems that the world faces. And a lot of that is because they've faced these challenges directly, whether that's a global pandemic, climate change, gun violence. They can see the big picture, and they are finding ways to connect to it and to be in service to that broader mission. And I've certainly seen it. Before KABOOM, I was at the federal agency that runs AmeriCorps and other national service programs. And service has been utilized as a tool for large scale change. Think about, whether you're thinking about like military service or Peace Corps or service in response to natural disasters. Service has the ability to bring people together in common pursuit of a large scale change objective. And that's really powerful. And I think what I'm seeing with my kids' generation is not only a willingness to dive in and tackle those big challenges, but an ability to do it effectively. And that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of reason for optimism.
Thank you for sharing that. I think if I can just quickly summarize some of the takeaways today. I heard that when we all do better, when everyone does better, I do better. So that is a great goal to have. We all win as a community. I love the idea of identifying people's superpowers and calling on those superpowers when needed. I loved Maggie's "there's no quick fix," that there are complex issues in this world and it takes hope and it takes effort. But if we keep working towards a goal, that you can get there. And hope is a big word. And I love that Dr. Love gave us this gift of ask people how we can be of service. And it's a simple question, but one where we can make a difference. So thank you to the panelists for joining me this evening. I encourage all the inspired moneymakers out there. You can visit Dr. Paul Zak at pauljzak.com. Check out his books, Moral Molecule, Trust Factor, Immersion, which I just read. Maggie Doyne, you can find her at maggie-doyne.com or BlinkNow. She wrote the book, Between the Mountain and the Sky, A Mother's Story of Love, Loss, Healing, and Hope. My 15-year-old daughter bought a signed copy with her own money because she did not want to share it with her siblings or her parents. So I thought that was really cool. And James Siegal, thank you. You can find more about James at kaboom.org. You can also listen to more of his story in episode 228 of Inspired Money. He talks about solving place-based inequity, his changing definition of success, and even touches upon crypto philanthropy. So thank you to Paul, Maggie, James. I really appreciate you guys sharing your insights and rearranging schedules. Please, everyone, join us again next week, Wednesday, September 20th from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Our episode is about mindful money management, budgeting for success. We've got great episodes coming up. Please visit the panelists, ask people how you can be of service. And until next week, do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.